So everyone's been watching the Fed and obviously gold as well, but behind the scenes, smart money has been slowly returning to cryptocurrency. Altcoins are waking up, Bitcoin's going towards 100k, and the data shows that this may continue. Leave a like if you're excited about the next couple of months in crypto. Fingers crossed we continue with this momentum, and leave a comment. What are you expecting to happen? So here we are. The road to 100k return is back. It's pretty wild, really. If you've been following me on X, you'll know my bias. You've been watching my videos, you should know my bias. Returning to the grey box potentially is a big thing. That is where we need to go. Kind of obvious, really. We need to go to all-time high and give it a retest. Altcoins are starting to return to their normality. And we'll talk about a lot of things in this video that might go over your head a little bit, but I do apologize. But we do need to mention it. Let's talk, firstly, about the obvious, the rate cut. Well, the interest rate. We knew there wasn't going to be a cut. It was kind of obvious. It was forecasted not to be. It was betted on 99% certainty that it was not going to happen. It was more about what Mr. Powell was saying in his speech, and it wasn't terrible, right? Powell said it's too early to determine whether inflation or unemployment will emerge as the greater concern. The Fed does not need to rush into adjusting interest rates. It's probably quite a good sign, really. And the central bank can afford to be patient. That's good. A wait-and-see approach. So that's good. We're not reacting to silliness. It's fine. But other things are happening. We were holding our breath. We can see that relief has happened. So let's see where we go next. But the biggest thing we do need to talk about, there is a couple of issues that we need to kind of look at. Now, let's talk about the obvious. I do apologize if you're not interested in gold, but gold is an interesting one. Gold on the daily time frame, nice little RSI divergence here, could be pulling back, but there is tensions in India and Pakistan that could affect little things, or quite big things, really. So we'll keep an eye on it. But Bitcoin, I'm hoping, cross your bollocks, cross your fingers, cross your toes, starts acting more like gold than it does with the S&P 500, for example, where that can be a little bit skittish, right? So fingers crossed, the macro setup's looking relatively good. Gold has obviously flew. The dollar has obviously dropped quite a lot. It's starting to reclaim some of these levels again, but this could be pulling up and then it could go back down again. Other things to mention as well in terms of the macro side of it, the Russell 2000 has finally started to come back up and go back to some sort of normality a little bit. This was in a horrible downtrend, which is also a big factor why altcoins do terrible. Just be mindful of that. So fingers crossed, that looks better. Let's talk about dominance. So, been watching my videos, you'll know I've been talking a lot about USD stable currency dominance. This is a trigger to indicate when existing money is rotating back into crypto. This is the proof in the pudding. So this is rolling over. And I was expecting us to go a bit higher and to kind of copy this sort of situation. But now we're kind of going down, right? Which is good. Now, this is a key signal to tell us, as I say, existing liquidity returning. It's like dry powder being lit. That cash is moving from the sidelines back into cryptocurrency. That's huge. Yes, I know, selling may go away, but there's normally a pump. And then it's kind of July, that's a bit shit, and August, that's a bit shit. So be mindful of that. This chart is very, very important because what we're seeing right now above my head is everything is looking relatively good here. Or below my head, sorry. Even on the little pairs that I've got below my head here is looking a bit better. It's still early, I know. And guess what? Bitcoin dominance is still at the absolute stupid heights of 65%. So yeah, it's looking a lot better. Now, Bitcoin is probably going to lead the way. Altcoins will probably lag a little bit, but ultimately they'll probably still go a little bit higher than what, we were expecting. The ETF inflow is still relatively strong, even with a bit of uncertainty over the last few days. I imagine today, the 8th, will display a much bigger return on this because of the price action. We could probably see that. Institutions have been buying quite a lot of Bitcoin over the last couple of months. You've probably seen that. And with Bitcoin dominance, in my opinion, slowly starting to chug a little bit and maybe slow down, that could be a real interesting point where altcoin dominance starts to wake up, because low liquidity in those altcoins and a bit of an opportunity may well see some random squirts to the upside. We've already seen quite a couple of altcoins just fly off, and it's just like, oh, hello, where have you come from? So stuff like that could be very, very important to keep an eye on, certainly as the economic climate, so to speak, settles down a little bit, which is kind of what we want. And when we talk about altcoins, this is what is happening. We're seeing a little bit of a revival in a couple of narratives, which is important. Real world assets have been doing pretty well. Deep in AI as well. Bitcoin ecosystem stuff like stacks and stuff has actually bounced and done something relatively good. Meme coins could be coming back, and it's always the late signal for retail, that one. So just be mindful of that one. But what we've seen over the last couple of days is this going from like 15 to 30. And I know that's like a very, very small jump, and it still is Bitcoin season. But it's showing that there is progression here, that some altcoins are now starting to outperform Bitcoin. I said it many videos ago. This is the early trigger sign. Don't get caught out by the emotions of a euphoric season when it's right at the end. Try and get in a bit early. And there's a lot of things that have been doing well. Obviously, ignore form here, but look at Maker, for example. Maker's an interesting play with obviously Ethereum and DAI. You can see Cake and CRV, a good, interesting element of retail there in terms of money flow. You've obviously got other elements like, Bit and Source, Sui doing really well. That's like a real good starting point for certain narratives to start to get born. And I mentioned before stacks here. Stacks, I know it's below Bitcoin currently, but what is funny about this one, and I'm going to say it, this was like bottom. I no longer hold stacks because I wasn't really too keen on the fact of how bad it was doing. So I kind of jumped out of it a little bit. Bit of a tax loss, maybe a bit of a fail there, but realistically, that could be strong for the entire Bitcoin ecosystem if that starts to mature again. Now, as you know, if you've been following my videos, you'll know that I am starting to position myself more as a altcoin trader versus an investor, which makes more sense. I am looking at a potential long here on Solana. Put it that way, simple as that. Quite a few things are looking relatively good, and you got to think, right, if we are going to continue the repeating pattern of the last, altcoin bounce, so to speak, we've got to look at the fact of two things. One, if the stable currencies drop, and this liquidity side of it goes into the market, what's going to go? So how my methodology works, and if you want to follow along, check out Patreon, you'll learn about my journal and stuff, what I'm actually doing in the market. I'm going to be a lot more upfront with that. Now, with that situation is, I'm going for the top liquidity sort of assets, i.e. top 10, top 20 assets that will move with dominance, that will move with liquidity because they're the most obvious plays. And that is where, as a trader, you should be looking to follow the market. And if you can follow the market in terms of risk on, risk off, it's probably easier. So for obvious reasons, obviously if this goes down and money returns, you're probably going to see the likes of Solana bounce a little bit. Now, it may not go crazy, it may not go to all-time highs, but it may well bounce and you will catch some of that move. That's the whole point of it. Look at how well Sui's been doing over the last couple of weeks. It's been huge. Hype is another one as well that's starting to really run with the market. But at the end of the day, you've got other ones like Cardano and you've got even AVAX that are starting to show signs of life at certain points and a bit of a change of character, and it could be bouncing some of these lows. From these lows, into these new, or into the highs, so to speak. So if you're looking at, like, say, a basic Fibonacci retracement, you could be targeting $30 here, potentially, if you're looking for momentum to kind of break up and continue going in that situation. That's just an example. That's kind of how I'm playing with the market. The issue is we need to always keep an eye on, risk off for altcoins. Currently, it's really starting to hot up and it's looking relatively good. Even the likes of Ethereum, right? Wow, okay. People probably are going to start taking notice. And with sentiment in crypto, it's very much key. Even though Bitcoin dominance is high, if liquidity is returned to the market and you're trading USD and Bitcoin's going up with it, you're probably going to get some easy tradable wins going long if those data points remain the same. If you want to trade alongside, feel free to jump in on Blowfin. There's a link below. It's no KYC, it's open to the UK. And as I say, I'll be talking about this on my Patreon. And if you want to learn from me, i.e. learn basic trading stuff, check out Learning Crypto. There's a link below, 30-day free trial. And that is us done today. Nice, simple, get the news out, get the information out. And realistically, we are looking a lot better than what we were a couple of days ago. It was a bit of a market jitter, but now I think we're kind of following through with that. So yeah, video here, feel free to watch it. The altcoin checklist for risk on, risk off. It will help you understand the narrative.